The logs end without a conclusion. No cause was recorded, no corrective action was taken. Inside the archive is a winter field journal, typed pages, carbon copies, dates spanning 2 rotations. The entries come from Redfish Point in the Sawtooth Wilderness, a station staffed during winters when access was limited and radio contact was unreliable. The journal documents a sound, logged multiple times, measured, timed, always at night. The detail that remains unresolved is consistent. The sound was heard under calm conditions. No wind recorded, no source identified, no usable recording preserved. The station was later closed. The reports were filed. Nothing further appears in the record. The Sawtooth Wilderness sits in central Idaho. It covers over 200,000 acres. Most of it has never been developed. The mountain passes close each October and don't reopen until May, sometimes June. The ranger stations are scattered across elevations that range from 5,000 feet to over 10,000. During winter, 3 of them become completely inaccessible. No roads in, no roads out. Radio contact becomes the only lifeline, and even that depends on the weather. The terrain is sharp ridgeline and dense lodgepole pine. Granite peaks break through the tree cover in jagged formations. The valleys between them funnel wind in strange ways. Sounds carry farther than they should, or they don't carry at all. It depends on the temperature, the snow depth, the pressure systems moving through. Rangers who work the winter rotation learn quickly that the wilderness doesn't follow predictable patterns. What you hear one night might vanish the next. What seems close might be miles away. The isolation is absolute. The nearest town is 40 miles from the southern boundary. During a storm, that distance becomes meaningless. You wait it out. You keep the fire going. You log your observations and hope the radio works when you need it. For decades, the Forest Service maintained handwritten logs at every station. Rangers were required to document weather conditions, wildlife sightings, and any unusual events. Most entries are routine: temperature readings, snowfall measurements, notes about elk movement or trail damage. But some entries don't fit that pattern. They describe something that no one has been able to explain, not with weather data, not with animal behavior studies, not with acoustic analysis. The first documented account comes from a ranger named Edward Carver. He was stationed at Redfish Point during the winter of 1973. His logs were preserved in the regional archives. They follow standard format for the first 2 months. Then the tone begins to shift. November 14th, 1973, 9:15 p.m. Clear skies tonight. Temperature dropped to 18 degrees after sunset. Wind is light, maybe 5 miles per hour from the northwest. Did a perimeter check before dark. No fresh tracks near the station. Firewood supply is good for another week. Radio check with headquarters went through without issue. Everything normal. November 22nd, 1973, 10:40 p.m. Heard something tonight I can't account for. It started around 9:30. A whistle, high-pitched, steady, coming from somewhere north of the station. At first I thought it was wind moving through the pines, but the air is completely still. No branches moving, no gusts. The sound didn't waver, it just held. One continuous note. I stepped outside to get a better sense of direction. It was coming from the ridgeline above the lake, maybe a mile out, maybe farther. Hard to say. I've heard elk bugles that carry across distance like that. I've heard mountain lions scream. This wasn't either of those. It didn't rise or fall. It didn't change pitch. It just stayed there for about 4 minutes. Then it stopped. Complete silence after that. I waited outside for another 20 minutes. Nothing. Came back in and logged the temperature again. 19 degrees, barometric pressure holding steady. No weather system moving in. I don't know what made that sound. I've been out here long enough to recognize most of what moves through this area. This was something else. Carver's logs continue for the rest of that winter. He mentions the whistle 3 more times, always at night, always from the same general direction, always lasting between 3 and 6 minutes. He never identifies a source. When his rotation ended in March, he filed a standard report with the district office. He noted the whistle as an unresolved observation. No follow-up was ever conducted. The logs were archived, and for 16 years, no one else reported hearing it. until a ranger named Claire Matheson was assigned to the same station. Winter of 1989. Her logs were typed on a manual typewriter, later scanned into the digital system. The entries are sparse for the first month. Then, December 8th, 1989, 11:05 p.m. Standard day. Checked the weather instruments this morning, cleared snow from the solar panels, radioed in at 1400 hours. Visibility has been good all week. No major storms forecast for the next 5 days. Routine patrol along the southern trail. Saw tracks from a deer, probably a mule deer based on the size. No signs of predators in the area. Firewood stocked. All equipment functional. December 16th, 1989, 10:20. I need to document something. I don't know how else to describe it. There's a sound that's been occurring at night. It started 3 days ago. I didn't log it the first time because I assumed it was something I could identify later, but it's happened again tonight, and I still don't know what it is. It's a whistle, very high, very pure. It doesn't sound mechanical, it doesn't sound like wind. I've been stationed in remote areas for 7 years. I know what the wilderness sounds like. This is different. It comes from the north, somewhere in the direction of the upper ridge, the same direction every time. It lasts several minutes, then it stops cleanly. No fade out, no trailing off, just stops. I went outside the first night to see if I could pinpoint it, but the snow was deep and the visibility was poor. I couldn't see more than 50 feet. The sound felt farther than that, maybe half a mile, maybe more. Tonight I tried recording it on the handheld unit, but the tape didn't pick it up clearly, just static and faint background noise. I could hear it standing right there, but the recorder didn't capture it. I don't know if that's an equipment problem or something about the frequency. I checked the old logs from previous rangers. There's a note from 1973, a ranger named Carver. He described the same thing, same location, same time of year. He called it a whistle too. I don't know what to make of that. I'm not drawing conclusions. I'm just logging what I'm hearing. The temperature tonight is 16 degrees. No wind, no precipitation. Barometric pressure is stable. There's no weather event that would explain this. And there's no animal I know of that produces a sound like this. I'll keep monitoring. Matheson's logs from the following week show increased attention to the phenomenon. She began timing the occurrences, recording environmental conditions in greater detail, trying to establish a pattern. December 21st, 1989, 9:50 p.m. The whistle returned tonight. Same time, same direction. I was prepared this time. I had the thermometer, the compass, and the watch ready. It began at 9:42, lasted for 5 minutes and 18 seconds, then stopped. Temperature was 14 degrees. Wind speed was 0. Cloud cover was minimal. I could see stars clearly. The sound came from due north. I'm certain of that now. I walked about 100 yards from the station. The snow is packed enough to move on snowshoes. The sound didn't get louder as I moved toward it. It stayed at the same volume. That doesn't make sense if it's coming from a fixed point. Sound should amplify as you approach the source. But this didn't. It felt uniform, like it was coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. I've started wondering if it's some kind of atmospheric effect. Temperature inversions can do strange things to sound, but I've never heard of one that produces a sustained tone like this. I radioed headquarters this morning, asked if there were any geological surveys happening in the area, any equipment that might be running. They said no, nothing active within 50 miles. I don't know what else to check. December 29th, 1989, 10:35 p.m. It happened again tonight, but this time it was different. The whistle started the same way, high, steady, north. But after about 2 minutes, it changed. The pitch dropped slightly, just for a few seconds. Then it returned to the original tone, then it dropped again. It was subtle, but I'm sure of what I heard. It wasn't random variation. It felt deliberate, like something adjusting. I don't know how else to describe it. I went outside immediately. The air was colder than it's been all month, 8 degrees, no moon tonight. Visibility was poor. I stood there until the sound stopped. 7 minutes this time, longer than usual. When it ended, I heard something else, a faint echo. Or maybe a response, from a different direction. Southwest, I think. It only lasted a few seconds, then silence. I waited for an hour, nothing more. I came back inside and checked the radio. Static on all channels. That's not unusual during cold snaps. But the timing felt strange. I'm logging this exactly as it happened. I'm not adding interpretation. But I need to note that I checked Carver's logs again tonight. He never mentioned the pitch changing. He never mentioned a second sound. Either this is new, or he didn't hear it. Matheson's final entry from that winter was dated January 4th, 1990. She reported the whistle occurring on 3 more occasions, each time with slight variations in duration. She noted that the secondary sound, the echo or response, occurred twice more, always from the southwest, always brief. She completed her rotation in late February and submitted a formal report to the district supervisor. The report was filed but never investigated. No acoustic specialists were sent to the area. No follow-up studies were conducted. The documentation sat in the archives, and the phenomenon continued to be reported, sporadically, across multiple decades, always from the same station, always during winter. In 2004, a researcher named Dr. Alan Feldman reviewed the historical logs as part of a broader study on environmental acoustics in wilderness areas. He was not investigating the whistle specifically. He was analyzing how terrain affects sound propagation. But he came across the reports, and he became interested. Feldman's background was in geophysics and atmospheric science. He had studied infrasound phenomena in remote locations, low-frequency sound waves that can travel vast distances, sound that humans can sometimes feel but not consciously hear. He believed the whistle might be explained by natural acoustic processes. Temperature inversions, he noted, can trap sound waves, creating channels where noise travels farther than normal. Wind moving through canyon formations can produce sustained tones. The geology of the Sawtooth Range, granite and basalt, can amplify certain frequencies. Feldman published a paper in 2006. He proposed that the whistle was likely a combination of thermal wind currents and rock resonance. The ridgeline above Redfish Point, he argued, formed a natural amphitheater. Under specific temperature and pressure conditions, air moving through the formations could generate a harmonic tone. The variations in pitch that Matheson described could be explained by shifts in wind speed. The secondary sound, the response, might be an echo reflecting off a distant slope. His analysis was thorough. It was based on established science, and it provided a plausible explanation. But it didn't account for everything. Feldman noted in his conclusion that the phenomenon only occurred during winter, only at night, only when wind speeds were near zero. That last detail was the problem. His theory required wind to generate the tone, but every ranger who logged the whistle specifically noted calm conditions. No wind, no air movement. Feldman acknowledged the inconsistency. He suggested that microbursts or localized pressure changes might be present even when surface wind was undetectable, but he had no data to support that. He also couldn't explain why the sound had been reported across 50 years. From the same location, with such consistency, natural acoustic phenomena tend to vary. They depend on weather, season, erosion, and environmental shifts. But the whistle, according to the logs, remained almost identical in terms of pitch, in terms of duration, in terms of the direction it came from. Another researcher, Dr. Karen Lim, reviewed Feldman's work in 2009. She approached it from a biological perspective. Lim specialized in animal communication, particularly nocturnal species. She suggested that the sound might be produced by an unidentified or rarely observed animal. Certain species of owls, she noted, can produce high-frequency calls. Some rodents use ultrasonic vocalizations. Insects, though dormant in winter, can sometimes remain active in microclimates. She proposed that a small population of an unknown species might inhabit the area, emerging only under specific conditions, producing calls that rangers misinterpreted as a whistle. But her hypothesis also had gaps. No animal vocalizations last 4 to 7 minutes without variation. Calls are used for communication. They change in rhythm, pitch, and intensity. The whistle didn't. It was continuous, unbroken. Lim also noted that no physical evidence had ever been found. No tracks, no scat, no nests, no sightings during daylight. She concluded that while an animal source was possible, it was unlikely. The most recent analysis came from a team of acoustic engineers in 2017. They were hired by the Forest Service to study noise pollution in wilderness areas. They reviewed the Redfish Point reports as part of their broader survey. The team used computational models to simulate how sound behaves in the region. They factored in elevation, temperature gradients, humidity, and terrain features. Their conclusion was similar to Feldman's. They believed the sound was likely environmental, a combination of wind, rock formations, and atmospheric pressure. But they also acknowledged the limitations of their analysis. They had no field recordings. Matheson's tape from 1989 had degraded. The audio was unusable. No one had successfully captured the whistle on modern equipment, because no one had been at the station when it occurred, not since 2012. The station was decommissioned that year due to budget cuts. It's still standing, but it's no longer staffed during winter. The team's final report included a note, a small detail that didn't fit the models. They had reviewed weather data from the nights when the whistle was logged. Barometric pressure, temperature, wind speed, humidity, and they found something unusual. On every night the whistle was reported, across 5 decades, the barometric pressure was nearly identical, within a margin of 0.02 inches of mercury. That level of consistency is rare. Pressure systems fluctuate. They shift with storms, seasons, and atmospheric cycles. But on those specific nights, the pressure held at the same level. The engineers noted it in their report. They didn't speculate on what it meant. They simply stated that it was statistically improbable, and that further study would be needed to explain it. No further study was ever conducted. The whistle has not been reported since 2012. That doesn't mean it stopped. It means no one has been there to hear it. The station sits empty now. The logs are archived. The researchers have moved on to other projects. But the barometric data remains, and the question remains: what produces a sound that occurs only under specific atmospheric conditions, in the same location, at the same time of year, for over 50 years, when no wind is present and no source has ever been found? The terrain hasn't changed. The ridgeline is still there. The valleys still funnel air the way they always have. If the sound was natural, it should still occur. If it was environmental, someone would have recorded it by now. But the logs end in 2012, and the wilderness keeps its secrets. The Redfish Point station is still accessible in summer. Hikers pass through. Occasionally, they see the small cabin, the weather instruments, the solar panels covered in dust. They don't know what was heard there. They don't know about the rangers who stood outside in the cold, trying to understand what they were listening to. The archives hold the records. The data is there. The observations are documented, but the sound itself remains unheard, and the answer, if there is one, is still out there, somewhere in the silence of the Sawtooth Wilderness.